Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the go-to podcast for parents with multiple kids, especially those with twins, triplets, or more, who are navigating the maze of modern family life and personal finance. Whether you're overwhelmed by education or retirement planning, parenting dilemmas, career transitions, or trying to define your purpose and plan, we're here to guide you with empathy, encouragement, and expertise. Hosted by Paul Fenner, founder of Tama Capital, a certified financial planner and parent to 4 kids, including a set of triplets. Our podcast is your ally in the quest for financial peace of mind, proving that money matters, but family comes first. Subscribe now and join our community of empowered parents at tamacapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Tama may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What does comprehensive financial planning even mean? At Tama Capital, it means a family office where lifestyle planning such as retirement, college, portfolio management, and tax prep and planning are all under one umbrella. But it goes beyond numbers. We focus as much on the emotional side of financial planning as we do on the financial side. We get you. We understand your challenges of building a family, business or career, and a healthy life. We are devoted to wealth planning for families like yours because we are you. Learn how our family can help your family by visiting tamacapital.com. And welcome back. I wanted to start this week with something that got my attention recently. I was at one of my triplets' sporting events, and I'm standing next to someone, a mom that I'd seen around for a while. We're friendly. We started doing some small talk as usual, and she mentions casually that she just left her corporate job, and that immediately got my attention. She's now doing some part-time consulting, maybe about 10 hours a week, and she said her family finally hit their number, and she wanted to be present for this part of their kids' lives while it was still happening, which is something we've been talking a lot about. And she was beaming. She was at every game, and to be honest with you, I was really happy for her. I was probably a little bit jealous because I know firsthand how a lot of parents struggle with their careers and trying to find this harmony. But then the advisor and me kicked in, and I stood there and I started doing some math. What was her number? How did it compare to mine? How did it compare to other families I work with? Could Theresa and I try to restructure something? And for about 90 seconds, this lady's story almost rewrote my entire plan. Not because of my situation had changed, because her story touched the thing I wanted most, which is time. And time is the one comparison that hits hardest for parents like us. She didn't quote me a safe withdrawal rate. She didn't mention her portfolio allocation. She told me a story. And that story had more pull than any spreadsheet data point that you could come up with. Stories are more powerful than statistics because they take less effort for your brain to contextualize complex issues. It's a mouthful, but it's a lesson that I've taken away from Morgan Housel's work throughout the years. I think he nails it because we don't make financial decisions based on data. We make them based on the stories we hear, the stories we tell ourselves, and the stories we think other people are living. So let me give you an example of this. I had a conversation with a family last year who had a great household income. They had 2 kids in travel sports, as most of us do. They had solid retirement accounts. By any statistical measure, they were doing great. And they were miserable about their money. Why? Because the husband's friend had just posted about buying a lake house. Not data about lakefront property values, a story. He posted some photos of his kids on a dock and a caption that said, "Finally making it." That'll get your attention. And suddenly this family who had been on track, who had enough, who were building something real, felt like they were now behind. Not because their numbers had changed, but because the story changed. And I see this constantly. A couple hears that their neighbor refinanced at a lower rate, and they're suddenly questioning their mortgage. A parent at school mentions that they maxed out their kids' 529s, and suddenly, everyone else feels like they're falling behind. Nobody is walking around quoting average 529 balances. They're telling stories about what other families are doing. And those stories move people to action or to panic in ways no spreadsheet ever will. And that's what exactly happened when I was having this conversation with this lady on the sidelines. And I know what Theresa and I are building. I know what our plan is. I know this is why we're choosing the path. But, a 1-3-minute conversation with a mom who made a different choice had me rethinking a lot. Not because my numbers had changed, because her story was the one thing I cared about, which mattered most because it was about being present while my kids are still home. So here's what I think is really going on. Statistics tell you what's probable. Stories tell you what's possible. And our brains are wired to chase what's possible, even though it's improbable. And I think about Morgan's example. Housing prices relative to median incomes are above their historic average. That's true. That's useful. And nobody at a kids' sporting event is repeating that sentence. But Jim made $300,000 flipping houses, and his wife thinks he's amazing. That gets retold. That story gets remembered, and that story changes behaviors. I think this is a core tension for families, a lot of families that I work with anyways. The data may say you're doing fine, your saving rate's healthy, your debt is manageable, your portfolio's growing, but the stories around you say someone else is doing better. And that gap between statistics of your life and the stories that you're absorbing, that's where anxiety lives. It's one of the hardest things in life to get the goalpost to stop moving, something I talk about all the time. And stories are what keep pushing it, not data, stories. So I think the real question isn't whether stories are more powerful than statistics. It's a mouthful today. But I think the real question is, whose story are you living? Because if you haven't written your own, you're going to keep borrowing someone else's, and borrowed stories are expensive. So here's what I'd ask you to try for this week. Pay attention to the financial stories that get into your head, not the data, the stories, the conversations at the office, the post on Instagram, the thing that your friend said at the bar one night. When you catch one, ask yourself a simple question. Is this my story, or is this someone else's story that I'm trying to rewrite in my own plan? Because remember, money is a number, enough is a story. Make sure you're writing your own. Now that you've made it to the end of another great conversation, are you looking for more? If so, head over to tamacapital.com, where you will find all of our conversations. Use the search feature to find the topic or guest you would love to learn more about. Also, don't forget to make someone else's day by sharing our show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.